already received his background, but he's got quite an impressive background. I'll go over it just briefly. John has been involved with architecture and design since 1978. He has worked in architecture offices in Toronto, New York, and Vancouver, and has degrees from the School of Architecture at Columbia University and the University of British Columbia. He has also written articles on, sorry, the cat tried to walk across the computer. He's also written articles on architecture and design for major newspapers and magazines across Canada. He is an active member of the Culinary Historians of Canada. And John, come on down.
Thank you, Scott. Hi, my name's John Ota, and I love kitchens. I'd like to thank Scott Warner and Catherine Lambrecht and Colleen Taylor-Sen for organizing this event, and thank you for attending. I'm going to take us on a whirlwind 45-minute talk on the evolution of the great American kitchen. We're going to cover 400 years in 45 minutes. We'll barely touch the surface, but I hope this gives a taste of the history of our favorite room in the house. Sure hope this changes.
What does it look like?
This doesn't change. Let's see. Maybe I'll do this. Okay, I'm going to try and
Okay, good. Phew.
do it this way. My wife, Fran, and I want to renovate our kitchen. But before I design a new kitchen, I want to know everything about the kitchen, the history, the floor plans, the invention of foods and drinks. So I went on a journey to find the perfect kitchen. I explored examples of excellent kitchen designs from throughout American history so that I could learn from them to improve our own kitchen. And then I wrote a book called The Kitchen. So if you're interested in buying the book, you can go to prh.com and you go to the website, the Penguin Random House website, you go to the little magnifying glass and type in John Ota, The Kitchen, and they'll tell you how to find the book. This is what our kitchen looks like.
By the way, John, can I interrupt
Yes.
for 1 second? You don't need to race to the clock. If it
Right.
takes you 50 minutes or an hour, it's okay. You don't have to get it all in 45 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Just thought I'd
Thank
tell you,
Catherine.
you don't have-
Okay. So this is what our kitchen looks like right now. I'm quite embarrassed by this. We built our own house. We never finished the kitchen. And so this is what's happened. We've got things all over the counter here. And I'll give you an update on what's going on at the end of the talk. So considering how important the kitchen is today, it's amazing to think that not long ago, the kitchen was the least desirable room in the home, a place where servants were hidden away in the heat, the smoke, and the smells. But today, the kitchen is the centerpiece, the trophy room, the Super Bowl of the entire house. So how did this happen? There are three major influences on the evolution of the kitchen, and it's the innovation of technology, kitchen reform in the 19th century, and sociological changes in gender, class, and family roles. My journey starts with the Pilgrim kitchen, Plymouth, Massachusetts. In 1620, the Pilgrims sailed into Cape Cod Bay at Plymouth. When they landed, they found the Wampanoag people who had lived there for over 12,000 years before them around Cape Cod. They lived in communal longhouses and cooked in the center of the floor plan. Plymouth is a village of 18 wood cottages. It's like a medieval village. The kitchen is the entire one-room house. The 14-foot by 20-foot interior is rough and spare. It was the bedroom, living, dining room for a family of 6 to 10 people. A wood table in the middle is the prep counter. Fire is the focus of the house. There's no brick fireplace. This is simply a fire on a dirt floor, and smoke is everywhere. That day we cooked, and here I am doing the mortar and pestle thing. I'm smiling for the camera, but really it's pretty miserable in there. It's smoky, it's hot, and I'm working really hard. There's a lot of work to do. That day we prepared roast quail, braised duck in the pot. You can see the quail on the spit turning, and fried pumpkin over an open fire with that long handled frying pan. It was long, hard, miserable work. And I expected bland, bland, bland. But the surprise at Plymouth was that the food was fabulous. Their dishes were as good, if not better, than what we eat today. The Pilgrims brought butter, salt, pepper, nutmeg, ginger, vanilla, cinnamon with them on the Mayflower. The key was fresh pumpkin, fresh duck, and fresh quail. That pumpkin, we just pulled it right out of the ground, and I had to chop it up. But it was just minutes out of the ground, so it was really delicious. This is John Adams' house, 1720 in Quincy, Massachusetts, one of the founding fathers. So houses eventually expanded to a second room on the back of the house for cooking. This is a three-story house with a living area in the front and a separate kitchen in the rear. The extra room or kitchen on the back was a response to a desire for gentility and vanity to impress visitors. When you had people over for dinner, they could eat in the front room and leave the smoke in the back room kitchen. The front rooms got decorated and furnished with the best possessions, and the back kitchen was left plain. And this was the beginning of the separation of the kitchen at the back. Here we are at Thomas Jefferson's Monticello, 1809, Charlottesville, Virginia. In the American South, mansions kept the kitchen separate from the main house to avoid fires, smells, and noise to the main house. One of the most famous houses in America is Monticello, and it's the most architecturally eccentric. When Jefferson traveled to France in 1784, it opened up a new world of food, wine, and architecture to him. He developed an interest in the Italian classical architect Palladio. Jefferson loved Palladio so much that he designed his kitchen areas like a Palladian villa with wings to the left and to the right to form a great U-shaped court in the middle. So this is a Palladian villa. The house is at the top in plan, and you can see these two wings that spread out, and there's a courtyard in the middle. So for Jefferson's kitchen area, he copied the Villa Rotunda by Palladio. You can see the floor plan of the house in the middle. Two narrow passageways go to the sides. This is in the basement. And then two wings he builds into the hill. So it's really like a basement addition, his kitchen areas. So he built these to connect the house with the kitchen. The kitchen's in the lower left. You can see in the lower left of the floor plan. So Jefferson located the kitchen separate from the main house in case of fire. But he also did this to keep the enslaved people out of sight, a continuous theme with historic kitchens. And this is the underground passageway to the kitchen. The 12-foot by 18-foot kitchen has a clean, no-nonsense look. At one end of the kitchen is a large brick fireplace. A wood table in the center is the main work counter. But the pride and joy of the kitchen is a large brick box built to waist height. It's over here on the left. And it's Jefferson's stew stove, designed with 8 openings and a set of cast iron inserts that hold charcoal, a kitchen appliance from France and rare in the United States at the time. The charcoal grates allowed the enslaved cooks to control the heat under the pans to make the delicate sauces in French cuisine. With his battalion of imported French copper pots, Jefferson had his enslaved cooks taught in French cooking. And during a Jefferson cooking class at Monticello, I cooked Jefferson's favorite French dishes, including tomato salads with French vinaigrette. He grew a multiple variety of tomatoes. He loved tomatoes. Macaroni and cheese. He served this at a Washington dinner in 1805. It was the hit of Washington. And ice cream profiteroles. People in Washington were amazed that you could have something hot and cold at the same time. Here we are at a place called Campbell House, 1822 in Toronto, where I'm from. In grand mansions in the country, the kitchen would be in a separate building. But in houses in cities, space was scarce, and the kitchen was typically squeezed into the basement. So here we are in the basement with a roaring fire in the fireplace. The servants would cook in an airless, smoky, and gloomy space. And this is a fuzzy picture, but it's really because of all the smoke in the room. It's really smoky and miserable. Here are some of the hearth tools that people used when they were cooking over the hearth. This crane that would swing back and forth. I love this griddle. So this griddle sits on the crane. It looks like a piece of modern contemporary Italian design. It's got this beautiful griddle with a little spout over here on the left and this handle that curves over the top. And the top is a ring that swings around. So you can swing that around over the fire. It's really quite amazing. Oh, here's something called a spider. So this is a long-handled frying pan, and you stick coals underneath or wood, flaming wood. And this is my favorite, the fish roaster. So it looks like some sort of medieval torture instrument, but you slide that fish in there. And this is the fish roaster doing its duty by the fire with a big pot and a roaster on the left and salmon on the trivet in the foreground. This is the Merchant's House, 1832 in New York City. So it has an excellent example of a kitchen in the basement. It's been awarded landmark status, not only for its 1832 federal brick exterior, but also for its Greek Revival interior rooms. The key difference in this basement kitchen is the presence of a cast iron stove. So this one has a double oven and multiple burners. And you can see over here on the top right, the servant bells where they had to answer to the family. By the 1850s, stoves had become common in kitchens of middle-class homes. Technology remained the same for hundreds of years until the Industrial Revolution of the 19th century. Innovations such as electricity, electric lighting, plumbing, gas lines were introduced that completely changed the evolution of the kitchen. Stoves were a godsend to cooks. They could control the temperature with levers and handles. They could cook more dishes on the top of the stovetop. And there was less risk of their clothes catching fire. Here we are in Chicago, Glassner House, 1887 by H.H. Richardson. H.H., one of my favorite architects, a handsome, robust, solid-looking gentleman, just like his buildings. In the late 19th century, women such as Catherine Beecher and Harriet Beecher Stowe led a kitchen reform movement. With an expanding middle class, there was a new awareness of the kitchen, and they wanted the house to be comfortable, healthy, and efficient for the women of the house. It was also the beginning of schools of domestic science or home economics to improve efficiency of housework. So at the Glassner House, the results were bringing the kitchen from the basement up to the ground floor with bigger windows in the kitchen, increasing sunlight, ventilation, and improving health. The aim was to make the kitchen the cleanest, neatest, most rational place in the house. So this sink is made of Vermont soapstone, and you can see the annunciator panel on the top left. And here we are in the annunciator panel. Servants had to serve Mr. Glassner or go to the library or go to the parlor. The floor is made of ceramic tile. The stove is a massive gas range of 8 plates, 4 ovens, 2 broilers. The Glassners like to entertain. The combination of the tile on the floor and the glazed subway tiles on the walls made everything easy to clean. The Beechers would approve. This is the Campbell House. We're moving up in time, 1909, Pasadena, California. So similarly, in other parts of the country, the kitchen was coming up through air. At the Campbell House, 1909, the kitchen was brought up to the ground floor. Designed by the architect brothers Charles and Henry Green, it's the ultimate arts and crafts masterpiece. The arts and crafts is all about nature, wood, and building by hand. Here we are in the front entry, but the servants continue to be separated from the family by the walls of the house with separate kitchen, stairways, hallways, bedrooms, and eating areas. The intention was to separate the servants from the upper class, the servants to be invisible. So in this gorgeous front vestibule, over on the right are these panel doors. One panel door is a closet. The other panel door is actually a passageway to the kitchen. So when somebody came to the door, the servant would come from the kitchen through that hidden panel, answer the door, take the hat and coat, put it in the closet. The Gambles would come out, and then the servant would literally disappear back into the woodwork, back away, be invisible. Here we are in the dining room, and you could, over to the left, there's an open door, and that's the way into the butler's pantry. And this butler's pantry is surprisingly light, spacious place. Sliding glass cupboard doors are used to save space. So those doors on the right slide back and forth. And looking the other way in the butler's pantry, there's a door there, a sliding door that comes down, so that what would happen is that the cook would push the food through that door and then shut it. And then that would keep the smells and the noise and be a buffer from the dining room. The kitchen is also light in area and it has a screen porch, a positive environment for the servants, but it also helped to keep employees happy and encourage them to stay. It's battleship linoleum on the floor. The woodwork is of the same high craftsmanship in less expensive maple, not antique or mahogany. And here's the gas stove. For the first time, cooks can turn a knob and get controlled and immediate heat. No wood or coal necessary. It was miraculous. Picnics were wildly popular in Pasadena at the turn of the century. When people came from the east to Los Angeles, they were lonely, and they kept in contact with each other and made new friends by forming state associations. So at Campbell House, I made a 1905 picnic lunch with sandwiches and salads from a 1905 Los Angeles Times cookbook. Here's Georgia O'Keeffe. We're going to go to her kitchen in Abiquiu, New Mexico, 1949. Georgia O'Keeffe was born in a farmhouse on a 600-acre dairy farm in 1887 near Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, near Madison. And she developed a love of nature and the land. She learned to draw and paint, and at age 12, she told a friend, "I want to be an artist." As culinary historians, we know that growing up on a farm in the 1890s in rural Wisconsin would be a lot of work to get food on the table. That work was done with no electricity, no running water, no refrigeration. So it was milking the cows at 5 or 6 in the morning, weeding the kitchen garden, bringing water from the well, pickling and preserving vegetables and fruits, canning chickens and pork and beef, because there was no refrigeration, foraging berries and wild greens. So much of life was getting and preserving food. Eventually, O'Keeffe came into contact and married art dealer and photographer Arthur Stieglitz in New York. And as an art dealer, he championed her work and promoted her career. She was a prolific artist. She became wealthy and well-known, but she also had a conflicted life in New York with distractions, her husband, and too much social life. She wanted to paint. She just wanted time to paint. She's one of the great painters. After Stieglitz's death in 1949, Georgia O'Keeffe moved to New Mexico, where she renovated an adobe house and lived a solitary life painting the New Mexico mountains. This is one of her paintings depicting the landscape near her house in Abiquiu. I visited and learned that O'Keeffe liked to cook, eat, and garden as much as making art. This is the landscape around her house. She couldn't get any farther away than Manhattan if she tried. And these are pictures of her house. So stepping into the front of the house, it's like stepping into a John Wayne Western movie. It has these beautiful adobe walls made adobe. They form bricks out of mud, and then they stack them up, and they put a skim coat, and so you get this curvy, undulating line in the walls and that curving parapet. The house actually has a flat roof with earth on it, and that's why they have to use this ladder to get on top of the flat roof to weed the roof. And an interesting thing about these adobe walls is that it's the females that finish the walls with their hands, smoothing over this last skim coat. And Georgia O'Keeffe could tell when it was a man's hand. She could just tell just by the stroke of the hand. So she's a real perfectionist. She would have been a great historic preservation architect. At the rear is an enormous garden surrounded by a meandering pink wall. It's a small farm of sprouting vegetables. And here she is cooking. So I'm used to seeing photographs of Georgia O'Keeffe looking very austere, very serious, very posed. But when she goes to New Mexico, there are all these photographs of her much more relaxed, much more informal, cooking, gardening, eating, and entertaining. So here she is in her kitchen. Oh, look, I didn't even notice. There's the dog, one of her chow dogs at the bottom right there. Looks like she's chopping vegetables, getting ready to make salad. Here she is chopping more vegetables in her kitchen. Oh, and she loved to grow herbs. So here she is with her herb seedlings. Entertaining, eating. Look at those beautiful beer steins. And more entertaining, eating, having a great time in New Mexico. This is her kitchen. So her kitchen has a band of white framed windows that stretch along one wall of the 12-foot by 16-foot room. The walls are painted white with 2 adobe colored accent walls on each end that echo rectangular forms in her art. The ceiling of natural wood logs and planking reflects local New Mexico building methods. The kitchen has a light, airy feeling and it is bathed in bright sunlight from the windows. So I call this New Mexico on the Hudson, because these are traditional adobe, traditional New Mexico building methods, but she's installed these long Manhattan type bands of windows to get more light into the house and beautiful views of the mountains outward. The eating table is a simple flat sheet of plywood supported by sawhorse legs. It's painted with a thin coat of opaque white paint. And you can see in the top right is a bare light bulb. All the lighting in her house is with bare light bulbs. There's only one lampshade in the house, and it's in the living room with, actually it's in the dining room. It's a Noguchi lampshade by Noguchi. And it's almost as if all lampshades were too fussy for her. Only a real Noguchi lampshade was good enough for Georgia O'Keeffe. And by the way, these tables, all the tables in the house are plywood tables like this. She designed them and had them built. And, you know, in the 1980s, we thought it was great when Frank Gehry, the architect, was making plywood furniture. My goodness, Georgia O'Keeffe was doing this in the 1950s. Oh, and behind an open door is her 10-foot by 12-foot pantry. It's a reflection of the big part that food played in her life. It's organized just like her paint box, very well organized, meticulous. This is her paint box. I love the fact that on her paint box, she's got masking tape on her handle. So this is another view of her pantry. I had a question a couple of weeks ago about mise en place. So mise en place is put in place, get everything organized, get your station ready, and plan your cooking day. So somebody asked me, how do you design for mise en place? This is the best example I can think of. It's Georgia O'Keeffe's pantry. Everything's in its place. Everything's neat and organized. And you can see that, oh, in the top right, she has baskets hanging there so that she'd go out to the garden and pick tomatoes or berries. She'd forage the streams to get wild chives on the stream beds. You can see underneath the counter are boxes of mason jars so she can do her pickling and her preserving there. And what's quite curious is the cupboard in the middle of the counter there is closed and it's locked, and that's where she kept her alcohol. Another view of her pantry, and what I loved about this is in the middle counter, the middle box, there is an electric frying pan, which was exactly the same electric frying pan that my mother had. I took a Georgia O'Keeffe cooking class and I met O'Keeffe's cook, Margaret Wood. She said Miss O'Keeffe was a lover of tasty and simple food, and she was also a health nut. She was an acquaintance of pioneering nutritionist Adele Davis. Her garden was an extension of her kitchen. So we made O'Keeffe recipes of baked chicken with an airline cut with lemon underneath the skin, a corn soup with fresh raw corn kernels off the cob, and dessert was Norwegian apple cake with rum sauce, an O'Keeffe favorite. I read an article on her cooking life that claimed she was a farm-to-table foodie ahead of her time. But I think she was just going back to her Wisconsin farm roots of pickling and preserving. It's what everybody did before the 1950s era of prepared foods. She lived 37 more years after her move to New Mexico. It looks like she's having the time of her life. She got to do what she wanted. Kentuck Knob, Mill Run, Pennsylvania, 1958. Designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, the mid-century modern kitchen. So during the late 1950s and early 60s, America and the USSR were in a race for the moon. The public preoccupation with outer space spilled over into architecture and design. Everything was made to look light and streamlined. The great American architect, Frank Lloyd Wright, was designing his own version of a mid-century modern kitchen. Here he is, my favorite architect, with his trademark pork pie hat. Wright's made a statement about the importance of the kitchen with this house by locating it at the center of the house. It's enclosed in a massive stone tower, and the kitchen is expressed on the exterior as well as the interior, so that you can see the front doors, and above it is that tower. Right there is the kitchen. That's a skylight down into the kitchen. Shiny and New Age was in vogue in the 1950s, and Wright and Mrs. Hagen went all out. So inside the kitchen, they're red cypress wood cupboards, and they're mounted on stone walls and match cabinetry in the rest of the house. It's such a great house, such a beautiful Wright house. Those stones, all the stone in the house is taken from the site. It's built on the top of a mountain. They took all the stones and built the house. The mid-century modern look was to have clean counters and a pristine look. And the kitchen counters are cut at angles to echo the geometric vibe in the rest of the house. Mrs. Hagen chose to cover her countertops in stainless steel, which gives a gleaming profile to the counters. They owned a dairy, so they knew the sanitary positive aspects of stainless steel. But the flip-down burners are the big wow in this kitchen. It's the equivalent of having a disappearing stove. So the mid-century modern look was to have a clean and pristine look. Designers tended to have appliances fold away and disappear. So these flip-down burners fold up into their casing and disappear. And a great thing about it is that you can unplug them and take them out to your patio to keep your barbecue sauce warm. So these space-saving burners were made by Frigidaire, and they still work from 1956. The original 1956 oven manufactured by Westinghouse is similarly faced with a stainless steel door, and it still works. It's amazing. Thanks to the Lord Palumbo family and Kentuck Knob staff, I made the fashionable mid-century modern dessert, Baked Alaska, in a Frank Lloyd Wright kitchen, one of the top fun things I've done in my life. Here we are. Welcome to the kitchen of Julia Child, 1962 in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Julia Child, America's most famous chef. She donated her kitchen, including the cabinets, the appliances, and hundreds of utensils, to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., where anybody can go and see this in a fabulous exhibition. At first glance, Julia Child's kitchen is mass confusion. The walls are covered by beaters, ladles, and spatulas hanging off pegboard. But gradually, the longer I look, the more it all makes sense. The countless knives and forks are neatly collected in canisters in one corner there on the left. Measuring cups hang next to the counter for baking duty. Multiple frying pans hang within easy reach of the big black stove. Here we go. You can see that's a close-up of her baking area with the mixer, with the Cuisinart, everything organized in its place. Here's her big Garland black stove. It's like a little Sherman tank, and pans within easy reach. To the right of the stove is the salad making area with vinegars and olive oils. And over on the right, there's even a jar of Skippy peanut butter out in case you need a snack. Here's another view of Big Garland. In the background, you can see her black refrigerator. They painted it black as a nice background for all the fridge magnets. She's got fridge magnets, just bananas, lemons, the name of the local grocery store. And on top of her refrigerator is a teapot cat cozy. So she liked cats, and there are lots of pictures of cats in her kitchen. Oh, and back to the stove. Above the stove, you see the canisters all organized with they're labeled with masking tape and black magic marker with spatulas and rubber scrapers and spoons. The most dominant feature of the kitchen is the vast number of pots and pans hanging in the kitchen. They're meticulously hung on the pegboard covered walls. There's an underlying orderliness to the kitchen. Each pot is hung in a specific place, outlined in black marker on the pegboard. And the way that they designed this is her husband, Paul Child, designed the kitchen. They laid out every single pot and pan on the floor of the kitchen and arranged the pots and pans as to where they thought they should go. And then they had this strategy of hanging them up. They're wired in behind, so with hooks. The hooks are wired in behind so that they knew exactly which pot was necessary at which time. At the center of the 14-foot by 20-foot kitchen is a modest wood table covered in a yellow Marimekko print tablecloth. She and her husband ate their meals here. And this is a good shot because you can see in between the windows, she's got her swivel lights. So she had lighting up above and this local task lighting on swivels because she didn't want any shadows on the counter. As well, underneath those lights, you can see the knife racks, magnetic knife racks that she has. All knives are organized in order of size. So everything's well organized. She uses every inch of the kitchen. So this is a kitchen. It's cluttered, but it's the kitchen of somebody who loves to cook. There's a love of cooking in this kitchen. Not everything has to be put away. Not everything has to be perfect. So this was actually very influential for me. It was a revelation. She uses every inch of the wall space, every inch of the counters to make this kitchen work. And I was so inspired by this kitchen. I came back to Toronto and found my friend who's a disciple of Julia Child. We made a Julia Child cheese souffle. So in the center of this, you can see the souffle pot. We tied foil around the outside to control any overflow. Here we are with the bechamel sauce and the fluffy egg white getting folded in, adding more cheese. And we put that in the souffle pot in the oven. And here we have this beautiful souffle. It was fantastic. A little complicated to make. These are not easy recipes to make, but it was delicious. Louis and Lucille Armstrong's kitchen, 1970, Queens, New York. So Louis Armstrong and his wife Lucille lived in a modest Queens, New York house. I got out of the cab. I couldn't believe this is where the king of jazz lived. You know, he's a Hollywood star, millionaire, and it's a very nice neighborhood, but it's not exactly what I would have expected for Louis Armstrong. So here's Louis and Lucille. Louis loved this house, and he loved the street, and he loved the kids on the street. So when he sings, "What a Wonderful World," I hear babies cry, I watch them grow, they'll learn much more than I'll ever know. He's singing about this street. And Lucille loved her curvy turquoise kitchen with wallpaper. So in the 1970s, kitchens were characterized by bright colors, and Lucille had her kitchen cupboards in bright turquoise, her favorite color, to match her turquoise Cadillac. She had a Cadillac in the garage, and she loved to drive it around the neighborhood. In 1970, bright turquoise was a popular color deriving from the Navajo turquoise jewelry from the Southwest. And Lucille did all the cooking, and she made Louis's favorite dish, red beans and rice, on her custom-built double oven stove. Isn't this gorgeous? Wouldn't you just love to have this? And I did not make red beans and rice in that kitchen. It's a museum piece. I went with some of the staff to a local New Orleans restaurant in Queens. And the great thing about beans and rice, you can smell it even before it comes to the table. You just get the smell and you just go, oh, here it comes. And then this gets plunked in front of me and with the collard greens and the cornbread. And it's a tremendous amount of food. I ate the whole thing. Usually I'm very conscious about portions. I ate the whole thing. There's this addictive quality to red beans and rice. It's the smoke and the salt. I ate the whole thing. I was full. It was great. I had a real Louis Armstrong moment. Graceland, Memphis, Tennessee, Elvis Presley, 1977. So from a distance, Graceland appears as a quiet two-story house at the top of the hill. Elvis, Priscilla, and Lisa Marie lived here. But once you step inside, all preconceptions of a quiet, conservative house disappears. The interior is like the white rhinestone jumpsuits that Elvis wore on stage. And the kitchen says, welcome to 1977. I was all shook up. The first thing that hits you is the vast amount of color and a collage of wood cabinets, patterned carpet, and the ultra bright colors of the lampshades and appliances. Nothing matches. Flower power and disco dancing was in and set a fashion trend of colorful pants, shirts, and vests that also found their way into house interiors. The center is a U-shaped counter of white formica speckled with gold glitter. Dark wood cabinets wrap around the room. And there's an avocado green sink, avocado green dishwasher, and obviously an avocado green coffee maker. Mismatching is most evident on the floor with the wall-to-wall kitchen carpet. The appliance wall has a harvest gold refrigerator and an electric stovetop. And here's the stovetop with a skillet, with a spatula, all ready for his cook, Mary Jenkins, to make him the peanut butter and banana sandwiches. So I came back and had an Elvis birthday party and had the meatloaf, Mary Jenkins meatloaf. It's made with hamburger and saltine crackers mixed into the hamburger. And the topping is tomato sauce with ketchup. And I had people over and I thought, what's this gonna taste like? But it was actually good. It was actually really delicious. And Elvis liked meatloaf better than steak because he could eat meatloaf faster. I got it. I'm with you. And of course, we had the peanut butter and banana sandwiches, and they were very good too. They're surprising. They sort of got this savory, sweet thing happening, and the outside is covered in butter and nice crunchy, crispy texture. So seeing the Harvest Gold fridge was like seeing an old friend. While in the 1970s, kitchens were an explosion of color, in the 80s and 90s, homeowners began to tire of the color and turn to a minimalist white kitchen. They did completely the opposite. But the 70s was also the beginning of the open concept kitchen, as the kitchen slowly opened up to the rest of the house, and with greater equality of the sexes in the 70s, entire families, men and children, not just women, began to cook together. So in conclusion, today's kitchen is the center of the house. It's the great room of the house. Instead of welcoming guests into the living room, the kitchen is where we gather with friends. So this is a new house on Vancouver Island in the Pacific Northwest. You enter the house through a low vestibule down here on the left, turn a corner, and bam, you're nearly bowled over by a spectacular view of the Pacific Ocean, the mountains at the back of the house. That's Washington State in the distance across the water. The entire main level is one open concept room, and the kitchen is the centerpiece. The dining room, living room, family room walls have disappeared. The kitchen ensemble of cabinets, stove, oven, and central island measures about 12 feet by 15 feet, but it feels much larger due to the openness to the rest of the house and the views. So here's a closer look at the kitchen. I love this little secret window on the right that opens up, gets ventilation through, and even when you're at the stove, you get a view of the mountains and the ocean. And I was very fortunate to cook in this kitchen, or I helped cook. Here I am chopping the vegetables on a diagonal. And we made a stir-fry pasta dish with spot prawns that were caught that morning, just 30 feet off the wharf. And the salad is made with wasabi greens that are grown out in the garden. So in this kitchen, what happens is that the kitchen itself opens up to the rest of the house. It opens up to the garden. It opens up to the ocean and out to the mountains. Oh, and here's just summing up. Here's my kitchen, the situation we're in right now. The stores have just opened here in Toronto again. I'm going to go out and go do the shopping. I want to get some open shelving here on the right. We've got a space there on the wall with nothing happening. And it's right underneath that is also some dead space. So I want to get one of those movable counters with a butcher block on top. So it'll be a mobile island. I've got to get some backsplash behind the sink and behind the stove or the stove top. Maybe some of those white subway tiles from the Glessner house. We want to get another oven, even if it's a smaller portable oven. We can put that in the movable island, and you just have to have 2 ovens. I mean, if you're making Christmas dinner and you've got a turkey in there, but you also have scalloped potatoes, and are both at different temperatures at different times, it's just a lot easier if you have 2 ovens. So in my kitchen, the kitchen's at the front of the house. I like waving to all the neighbors. They walk by. Some of them look at the house and they think it's quite weird looking, but I just wave to them and I tell them to come in and give them a little tour if they want. Some kitchen trends to watch for. So slab backsplashes. Another big change is in tile backsplashes. This is Jennifer Siegel Architect's house in Venice, California. The large slabs are taking over and they rise to the ceiling with upper cabinets on their way out. Owners are left with more wall space, and you can see she loves this big marble backsplash that goes to the ceiling. Dining table attached to the island. So as the dining room disappears, this is the trend. Kitchen islands have become focal points in the hub of the kitchen, and larger single level, serving multiple uses. She has an island here, and she's got the dining table attached to it. This is the living area in the front here. And so when I came and met with her, this is where the meeting takes place, at her kitchen table. And you can see this is where looking the other way, my chair is pulled out. And just to the left is the area that she's designed for her daughter. She's got a young child, and she's got her playhouse there and her desk. So everything happens in the kitchen. The homework's done in the kitchen. The cooking's done in the kitchen. Everything happens in the kitchen in this house. And finally, smart kitchens. So today you can have a kitchen with technology integrated into every appliance, all controlled from your smartphone. Whirlpool has an oven whose window doubles as a screen, so you can see what's roasting inside, but a camera inside the oven lets you zoom in to see if the cheese on the lasagna has browned without opening the oven door. But it's the fridge where it's really happening. The fridge can track groceries as you put them inside, record the best before dates, and track consumption. So Samsung has a fridge that comes with a camera app that lets you check on its contents on your phone while you're grocery shopping, pushing your shopping cart. So you can say, gee, what kind of yogurt did I want to get? What did we have? And you can look inside your fridge and then go get that yogurt. Or, you know, am I out of celery? Do I need celery? You look around inside your fridge. Okay, let's go get the celery. So you can share that camera inside your fridge with your grocery store, if you like, and they can track your consumption and even send you more milk if they think you're getting low. But you gotta watch it, because you know that they're going to be tracking things and they might be selling that information to advertisers, marketing firms. So that's the downside. So this is the front of the fridge. You can punch in your local grocery grocery store or for more groceries, and here's a person checking the inside of her fridge with their phone. So finally, my suggestion is make it your happy place. The kitchen will continue to be the most important room of the house and more. As life becomes more go, 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 and family members become increasingly isolated in their private rooms with their own televisions, cell phones, and computers, the space where we come together for a shared meal will become more treasured. Cooking, eating, spending time with friends and family are possibly the greatest pleasures in life. Wouldn't you say? I think so. And the sight of it all is the kitchen. It doesn't have to look like it's out of a design magazine. Julia Child's kitchen was cluttered, but she loved her kitchen. It's the kitchen of a person who loves to cook. I hope that you love your kitchen, and I hope you love to cook in it. And the last word on the kitchen goes to who else? It's certainly the most loved and most used room in the house. Julia Child, bon appetit. Thank you very much for listening to me tonight. It's so nice to meet you. Again, if you want to buy the book, go to prh.com. And my email address is here. It's roota@rogers.com. And I'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions after tonight, you can send me an email. Even if it's a couple of weeks or a month from now, you can send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
We'll take it back to Julie.
No, he's muted.
Okay. We can each unmute ourselves if people are.
Well, it mute. Yeah, so John, can you check your microphone? Because just like the last minute or two, it kind of got scratchy.
Is that right? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay, you know what?
No, that's life with electronics. So if people, Cynthia, do you have a question to ask?
Nope, just was letting people know they can unmute themselves.
Yeah, but unless they don't have a question,
Oh, okay.
you know what I mean?
Well, I was just going to say, like,
I'm going to try something.
Yeah, this is Harpinder. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's see if he can hear you. Okay, John, can you hear us now?
I can hear you. You know what I'm going to try? I'm going to try and phone in. I've done this before.
I think your mic is not working.
So,
Okay, so you got a problem.
just a minute.
The whole talk was good. It was just the last minute or two.
Right.
Yeah, but there's no voice on that same mic, I think.
can you get rid of like share screen?
Catherine, I'm going to try and call in on my cell phone. I've done this before.
44 participants.
No, there was. I'm going to mute everybody and then you can unmute, but there's too many unmuted.
Yeah, and see what happens.
No, chat says chat disabled.
Oh, God, I didn't disable it. Oh. Okay.
Well, I just noticed it flashed that John is now muted too.
Enter your participants and the meeting password, followed by #.
We'll just wait a moment.
Question?
He's dialing in. All right. He should come in a moment.
All right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Is it better?
Let me find your other.
Okay, so I'm doing this through the cell phone now.
Okay,
Catherine, can you-
all right. I just muted your other account. So John, say something. Hi. Not you. Sorry.
John's muted.
Catherine, can you hear me?
I can hear you, and I've unmuted your other account. If you want, you might want to turn off your screen. People.
I was thinking, John, maybe you could just go on purely audio.
No, you're on mute.
Was better.
No, they put me back. No, I'm open.
Can we hear him? I don't hear. Oh, please.
Not muted when the line is through.
No, the line is through means you're muted.
No, the other one is mute. The line means not.
Sorry.
Well, I have a question. Can John hear me?
I'm not sure yet, but what's your question anyway? Just
Okay, the question was, I've just been reading, some news about how people are beginning to move away from the open, plan. And I was just wondering if he had any thoughts about what would be next. Nope, not hearing him at all.
I'm not seeing him. So how's that? And I don't know what Scott happened to Scott.
There he is.
I see John, I just don't hear him.
Was there any indication of why people are moving away from the open plan?
Well, they think it's just, it basically makes life too cluttered.
Open plan.
It was they just said that they're finding that it doesn't work well with the social dynamic. It's good to have a separate place for different things. That's, just seen it a couple of places, but
John, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can, yes.
Are you on your phone or on the computer?
I'm on both right now. I'm on both. Can you hear me for the?
That's the problem. We need to have one or the other, but not both. Yeah, I'm gonna mute this one.
I'm not hearing the phone at all.
Regarding your open plan thing that you talked about, Cynthia,
Yeah,
I feel like all those HGTV programs talk about everything's open concept, and I just don't get it. Because when you're in a house and everybody can hear and see everything that's going on in this huge vast area, to me, it's like you don't have a chance to focus on something. You're distracted by it.
well, I think that's one of the reasons they were talking about it's going away now. They're questioning its, usefulness.
Yeah.
You don't have privacy. You don't have. Plus, of course, every time you fry something, you have to clean the whole house.
Yeah.
That's not fun.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering if John had any thoughts about where we were headed next.
I had a thought that, all the focus was on who's who of the country. There's no mention of, how commoners ate or cooked, I mean, it's talking about the 1% of people. But, the rest of the country, what kind of kitchens they had, what kind of food was in.
Yeah, but he was looking at those kitchens for inspiration.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, the book is titled The American Kitchen. It's the who's who was America's kitchen. I mean, to me, that was sort of the difference.
I'm trying to figure
Although interestingly enough, that first kitchen that he showed, Jefferson Kitchen, was very reminiscent of kitchens in a lot of palaces in Europe I've seen. Kind of reminded me of Hampton Court Palace's kitchens.
Okay.
Catherine, can you hear me at all?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. So I'll do this through the phone.
All right, then I'm gonna mute because Can you say something?
Yes, I can say lots of things.
Yeah. What I've done is I've muted, or I tried to mute anyway. All right, now can you say something now? All right, you're not using your phone. You're actually using your computer. That's what's happening here. Because I'm going to turn it back on. Hold on.
Can you mute one without muting the other?
Because what's happening, Cynthia, it's like an echo.
Oh, sure, I could tell.
Right, and so he had, unfortunately though, the one that seems to be working is when he's, it's frustrating, sorry, just.
Which one is raise your hand?
It was a splendid presentation, and should we throw in the towel?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Doesn't look like it. Look at the participants and see if there's something there for raise your hand.
That's why I'm doing it. There's nothing. There's just camera and microphone. That's it.
There's raise your hand.
Where, the green one?
By the participants at the bottom left.
Well, now we know who that is. Well, is anybody still here?
Well, there's still 33 people.
Right. I don't know what to tell you. This is like.
This was great.
It was very interesting.
It was a lot of fun. I had to laugh.
My kitchens.
I had to chuckle when I saw the Harvest Gold refrigerator.
Oh, in the Elvis Presley kitchen?
But it was just one of those, well, when he said, yes, the Harvest Gold, and everybody had Harvest Gold, and it was like, yep.
Nope, just white.
You know, and it reminded the Elvis Presley kitchen, my sister has practically the same cabinets in there. So I knew it was like a 1970s kitchen, but with like granite counters to kind of update it, but it's what it is.
Well, this was very interesting. Thank you all for arranging it.
Yes, and thank you, John, for sharing.
Yeah, and I don't
remember.
know, Scott disappeared.
Oh, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Check.
Oh, now, have you been there the whole
You
time?
might be able.
I'll give you something to think about. In
So-
1970s, I sold those avocado refrigerators and
Hey, can we
ranges
get,
and Harvest Gold. Sold plenty of them. They were big
this
sellers.
is,
We were.
yeah, see,
Kathy, are we able to get questions to John or
I don't know what's.
should we just end it now?
Yeah, we're losing people pretty quick, good rate here.
Well, you know what? Those that want to stick around, I have no idea, but you know, we can all just say adieu, or you, Scott, it's your program, your call.
Yeah, let's end it now. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get the questions, but fortunately, that was a superb talk. It was brimful of savory, wonderful ideas about the kitchen, and it was great food history. It was absolutely superb, John. Thank you so
Well,
much.
it's really fun to get insights into people's cooking lives. I mean, I never thought of Georgia O'Keeffe in the kitchen.
Absolutely right.
So, and
And
again,
happy.
Yeah.
yes, and so we will bid adieu and look forward to seeing you folks next month.